Hello YouTube and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres, and for this video we are going to be looking at a couple of highlight videos or highlight battles for my regrind through the German Tier 9 destroyer, the Z-46. Now, as I've mentioned, I'm sure a few times before, the German destroyers are actually the one destroyer line that I've actually had the most fun with overall through the game. And that's because these ships just have so much utility to them between having hydro, speed boost, and the smoke. They're really a phenomenal ship line. They're kind of your... I swear they're almost your jack-of-all-trades lines. They have a little bit of speed where they need it. They have good detection, good speed overall. Again, they've got that phenomenal German hydro. Overall, they just tend to be very good ships. On top of the fact that they have very good German armor-piercing shells, they can actually be a reasonable threat in close quarters to even a cruiser, as long as commander is capable of pulling out all the stops. The Z-46 also, while it doesn't exactly have the greatest torp reload speed of all, it's still very, very usable, and these torps do hit nice and hard. I often do not find myself really wishing that I had more torpedoes or harder hitting torpedoes. Not that it can't happen, but when you consider that Cleveland that just came around the corner and met its untimely demise, or timely depending on which end of the battlefield you're looking from, it's still more than enough to get the job done. And even with both torpedo sets, I've honestly found that unless I'm taking on something that has an incredibly large health pool anyway, we're looking primarily at ships like the Grosse Kurfürst or the Monarch here, honestly these torpedoes really do cut it quite nicely. I mean, especially when you consider that in most cases when you're closing on a battleship late match, like say a Montana or even a Yamato, GK, whatever, usually by then they've eaten enough damage from other sources where that really doesn't come into play too much with destroyers just not having enough damage output to be really reliable in as far as finishing targets off. So definitely very, very strong ships overall, and I just love playing through them. They are, again, just extremely versatile, and that was why I opted to go for the German destroyers for the overall regrind aspect. They're just so capable. I enjoy running through them, and there's no reason in the world I can think of to not opt for using them as far as the regrind. Again, they're just incredibly fun ships to play with. And they just made the regrind at the time overall worth it, because I was also able to get more experience into the commanders for the line, and overall just basically made the whole process enjoyable. Yeah, it can get a little bit rough at times, especially if you have just rough matches, but that's the other thing with the German destroyer overall versatility, is that because of that versatility, depending on the role you move in to fill, you generally tend to have very consistent matches overall in them, as far as I have seen. So there is no reason in the world at all that I can think of to not play through them, honestly. Now, granted, I'm sure there are players out there who absolutely hate them, and you know what, all power to them, your mileage may vary, but as far as everything else goes, these are perfectly capable destroyers, perfectly functional destroyers, and just a real blast to play, even in the realm where right now we have Hirugamos and other rapid-firing ships just running around. I mean, hell, I was running this around with Atlantas and Smolensks in the queues, and I was doing okay. So I'll take that very much in stride. and say even in the current game metas, they are very capable ships, and I just love running through them. In fact, as you can already see, and by the way, this is also pre 8.10 patch, I might add. This was 8.9, so still on the 8x8 matchmaker for co-op matches. But even so, I was still pulling off phenomenal matches. In fact, the ones that you're going to be seeing for the duration of this replay are all incredibly good matches as far as I'm concerned for a co-op match prior to 8.10. And I would not be surprised in the least to find out that my capabilities, my damage potential, everything is just that much better in 8.10 with one more ship to farm damage off of. But that is as it is, and again, just very usable, very good ships, and I think they definitely work very well. And of course, because they are destroyers with torpedoes, well, they also do up tier relatively well as well. I mean, the Z-46 can definitely take on tier 10s just as well as it can take on tier 9s or tier 8s. So again, just very capable, very maneuverable, very manageable ships overall. First match done, 161,555 damage done, 268,096 credits earned, 6,800 EXP, 4,700 free EXP. Yes, I'm using modifiers. Again, regrind, not a main grind. I can do that if I want to. 153 main battery hits, 11 torpedo hits, 5 ship kills. If this were a random match, I would have had a Kraken. But you don't earn achievements in co-op matches, so oh well. Even caused 3 floods, performed 1 capture, and did a couple of other things. For team score, 704 base EXP. I mean, that number alone is incredible right there. And it just goes to show, in some ways, what these little German destroyers are more than capable of under the right circumstances. Now, granted, a lot of the ships just kind of tended to run into me as well, but even so, the simple fact that I was able to handle just about all of them very well definitely says a lot. Ship did absorb directly almost 14,000 damage, so I did get a little close there, but it wasn't bad overall. Did 108,000 damage with torpedoes, 161,000 damage with my main battery, 17,900 of that being from high explosive, and the remainder coming from 53,000 damage done by the main battery, 17,900 by high explosive, and 35,000 done by armor-piercing shells. No aircraft really running around for me to get aircraft damage, but I did tank a potential of 119,000 damage, and I even picked up 17,000 damage from spotting. So overall, definitely not bad as far as the general game performance numbers. Of course, the only ships that really got any reasonable damage in on me in the first place, the Chungmu and the Monarch, were the only ships that really got a good enough look at me to be capable of doing that kind of damage. So there is that to be said as well. 117,000 credits earned for the match, 172,000 was my baseline with 150 in costs, so that would have been about 22,000 credits overall earned for the match net if I had not been running modifiers. So there was still definitely a nice strong profit as far as I'm concerned for a tier 9 match. I mean, it could have been worse. I also wasn't running premium camo either. That would have dropped down my costs a good bit more. But overall, still not bad. Commander also walked away from the match with 13,170 EXP with all of the various modifiers. Now, this next match, some of you may recognize already because this was the match that I actually took clips from regarding the bot detection bug video that I put out last week. And, well, now you get to see the thing in full. But, yeah, there's the first hit from the Chapayev behind me, and you can see me just kind of looking around like, where the hell did that come from? Why? Why did that even happen in the first place? But again, this is a bug that has been going on in World of Warships for quite some time now, and you know what? I'm just really getting tired of it. It's getting to be... It's getting to be... I'm even willing to say detrimental to the game. So it's definitely something that needs to be addressed, and I hope, partly because of my reporting it and the video notifying players of it, it does gain the notoriety that it is due, and maybe something will be done about it eventually. Hopefully. We'll see. I don't know. It could happen, right? But anyway, moving away from that, this was still a phenomenal match despite everything that happened. Basically just utilizing a lot of the terrain for cover, so on and so forth. Basically nothing new to really anybody. Just smoke up, try to control the capture point, and just do damage to everything that I can that gets within spitting distance. And because it is a German destroyer, it is very capable of doing so while sitting in smoke and not having to worry really too much about a damn thing. So long as you play your cards right. The Chapayev does start getting a little too close for comfort though, and rather than keeping shooting and being spotted that way, I'd rather just start moving overall, because I do know that the Chapayev does have torpedoes, and I really don't want to be getting too terribly close while not being moving already. I would very much like to take on a Chapayev on my own terms instead of on its terms. And of course, as I was saying earlier, lovely, lovely, lovely German AP shells right into the side of that Chapayev for 8,500 damage. Yeah, gotta love it. Gotta love these little spitters. They definitely do the job very, very well. Now, something you all may notice is that I've actually started doing something with my ships, especially my destroyers, partly because of destroyers like the Japanese ships, which have the super long reloads. I've actually started doing something that I probably should have done a very long time ago anyway. But when I have a ship that is on low health or near max health, but I know I'm going to do a good sizable chunk of damage to it with my torpedoes, even just one spread, what I'll do is I'll drop the torpedoes and then I will just hold the second set in reserve. That way, if I do enough damage to kill the enemy ship with the first set, I don't waste the second set. There's also the simple fact that if the enemy ship is left on low enough health after using the first set of torpedoes, I can then just do what I can to drop them down with main battery fire instead of having to use that secondary set of torpedoes, and then I have that set of torpedoes in reserve for, say, the next ship in line, or the next couple of ships in line even. That way I'm basically not blowing my load on one target and then turning around and saying, oh shit, there's a battleship right there that I should have saved something for. The other thing that it helps out with is, especially if I'm attacking clustered groups of targets, because, I mean, those of you who have watched my videos by now know me, I'm an aggressive player. I love to push in and do what I can to as many ships as possible sometimes before just plain dying due to focus fire and proximity. But the nice thing is, by holding one set of torpedoes, if I do a charge like that, and I have other ships following behind me, I can drop a set of torpedoes on one ship, then go straight past it to the next ship in line, and then my teammates can actually finish off these ships that are coming, that I have now left on low health. Oh, and yeah, there was the other shot that came from the Mogami, by the way. But it basically just gives me a lot more flexibility in where my damage is being done, and can be very helpful to the team overall when it's used smart. Now, granted, many of you may already know this, and saying, well, Wadres, why didn't you figure this out earlier? I probably did figure it out earlier, I just didn't really care enough to try doing so until some recent changes in the game or whatnot, at which point I just started doing so a little bit more regularly than I would have before. Before, I would have just gone for a kill secure rather than just dropping and trying to do as much damage with a single salvo and finish off a single ship, instead of spreading my damage around so that targets were left on lower health for friendlies. But that is what it is. It's depending on how you look at it, it has its merits both ways. It's really up to your own particular chosen playstyle in order to determine whether or not it's something that you actually want to do or not. There's nothing wrong with me doing it the way that I was doing it before. There's also nothing wrong with me doing it the way that I have been lately. Again, I just decided to do the one more recently because it, especially with longer reloads on torpedoes and whatnot, even the Z-46 has, I think, a little over a minute long reload. So it's nice having that extra set of torpedoes in reserve if I need it, if I happen to be torpedoing a battleship and suddenly, oh, there's a cruiser coming around the corner, or maybe I finish off a cruiser and with the first set of torpedoes, and I've still got a battleship coming around right behind it and now have nothing to do the major damage with. So, again, just 6 of one, half dozen of the other. The other thing is, if I drop both sets of torpedoes on the same line for a cruiser that's coming around the corner, it increases my chances that both sets of torpedoes are just possibly going to miss and may not do as much damage as they need to. In which case, again, it's nicer to have that second set of torpedoes in reserve for a new bearing, a new lead calculation, if you will, to try and finish the cruiser off instead of, oh boy, it just missed both of my sets of torpedoes. I'm screwed. So yeah, anyway, be that as it is, that this is all, again, to several of you, probably nothing new, nothing that's really constructive or helpful, but for a newer player, it might be some helpful insight, so who knows. But anyway, this match is almost done. I've basically done just about everything that I'm going to as far as the progression for this match. I think I barely get in one shot on the Lexington at best, and that's only just as it gets into range. But yeah, no, I don't even get a shot at it now that I think about it. This match was a couple of weeks ago. I don't even really remember too terribly much. But anyway, 285,934 credits earned, 7,438 EXP, 5,216 free EXP. Yes, I changed my modifiers up a little bit. 176,528 damage done, 124 main battery hits, 13 torpedo hits, 16 aircraft shot down, and 4 ship kills. There were also 3 citadels from the AP I used on that Chapayev, 1 capture, 2 fires, and 2 floods. Overall, good solid numbers all around through the match, to be perfectly honest. And just, again, one of the reasons why I love these German destroyers. As long as you use them right, as long as you know what you're doing, they are so strong in matches. It's not even funny. You can utterly dominate a match in one of these things if you play them right. 770 base EXP earned for the match. Again, incredibly phenomenal earnings by any standards. I mean, okay, maybe lackluster by comparison to a random match, but if I had had results similar to this in a random match, my numbers would have just been even higher still. So, who's really counting in that regard? 60,000 on the North Carolina, 58,000 damage done to the Monarch, and a good chunk of damage done to the enemy Mogami, Chapayev, and Ognavoy. 47,000 damage done overall by the main battery, with 31,000 of that being from armor piercing, 16,000 from high explosive. Torpedoes did 129,000 points worth of damage, and I did almost 25,000 damage to enemy aircraft. 250,000 potential damage tanked, 1,700 only as far as my spotting damage. And ship only directly absorbed 9,000 points worth of damage, with, 1,400 of that being from friendly fire. So, really not a bad match overall. Net earnings, 133,174 credits, and with all of the add-tos, takeaways, and everything, if I had not had the modifiers on there, that still would have been a good 30-ish thousand, 32-ish thousand credits earned for the match, so good solid earnings again for a co-op match, as far as I'm concerned. And again, if I had been running the premium camo for the Z-46, my overall expenses would have been reduced a reasonable amount as well. Commander also walked away from the match with 10,808 EXP, which is very respectable. Anyway, on that note, those two matches are my highlights for regrinding through the Z-46. And, I mean, just goes to showcase just how phenomenal this ship can be, and under the right circumstances, and when positioning, everything is used very well. On that note, though, I shall go ahead and let you all go. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, so you can get access to future content. And I hope to catch you all again later. Happy hunting, folks.